Okay, good morning, everyone. It is Monday, May 24th, 2021. We'll get started here with our pre-market analysis. So I want to jump to my high time frames as usual. We'll go to the ultra high time frames here. Take a look at our quarterly. Everything looks as it has looked for the last few weeks. No signs of exhaustion. Things looks very bullish here. And pretty much the same thing on our monthly. Just something to kind of point out that's somewhat interesting here is that slope or that trend line we were looking at for this push up since the sell-off in March of 2020. We still have not really broken that trend line. You can see on this current monthly candle, which is going to close at the end of this week. We still have not broken down below that low around 40.29. And assuming we stay above it, things still look very, very bullish here. No signs of exhaustion, at least from an RVI divergence perspective. And so things are looking pretty strong. When we go to our weekly, remember that the week that closed on May 7th, we got bearish indications, and then we had that sell-off. And then the week that closed on May 14th, we also had that bearish indication, and we saw a stay basically 50% below, or stay below 50% of that previous candle and kind of have a sell-off, and then we did buy it back towards midweek. Now, off of the lows, what I did want to point out here is last week we said that if we end up holding above this low at 55.50 and the RVI stays the same, we are going to have somewhat of a bullish indication here off of the low that we made from last week's candle. And so right now, that's exactly what ended up happening. We have this push to a lower low on RVI, but a push to a higher low on our price. So things look, we're getting somewhat of a bullish indication here off the low. Now, don't get me wrong, it's kind of all based off of just this one line. It'd be nice to have defined peaks for these type of arguments, but because we have two subsequent candles here, we have to go with what it's telling us, and currently that's just what the chart is saying right now. So assuming we don't break below 55.50, that bullish case will still hold from a weekly perspective. So our ultra high time frames still all looking pretty bullish. Now, obviously, this week we would like to see a push up to at least come up and test the all-time high, if not push above it. But that's kind of what we're seeing here on our ultra high time frames. When we jump down to our daily, last week we did see that really clear bearish indication, which led to the sell-off going into, I think that was Tuesday and Wednesday of last week. And now currently, if you guys remember what I said last week, off of this high here, we pushed to make, we were looking at this candle, I believe this was on Friday, and we said if we stay in this current situation, we could have a potential bearish indication. But what ended up happening is price pushed from a high of 79.50 on this bar to a high of 85 on Friday. And so overall, price did push to make a higher high, and the RVI developed a little bit more and actually pushed to make a higher high as well. So we did not get any type of bearish indication there. In fact, I'm going to delete this because there is no divergence there. So what I'm seeing right now, outside of the fact that we don't have that bearish indication that we said could potentially build up here, I do see a very bearish looking daily bar from last week. Now, if we can break above 41.85 here, that's going to negate this bearish indication just from a candlestick perspective, which will give us a lot more faith in a push to test the all-time high here. So the idea is if we can get above 85, this one bearish daily candle from Friday will be completely negated. So we'll have to watch that this morning. Of course, we have all day for this candle to develop, so we can't really say too much about it right now. But ideally, it looks like we've had this pretty strong push off of the pre-market or the overnight low or the Globex low. And so now, this has been a pretty nice push up about 20-25 points. We only have about 10 more points to go here to break that high that we'd ideally like to see for a bullish case this morning. When we jump down to our 4-hour here, just give me a second to scan this. No indication of bearishness there, just like on the daily from 41.85. So still looks strong. And really what I'm seeing here from a 4-hour perspective is the bullish indication that I got off of the pre-market or the overnight low. You could also consider it your Globex low. Decent bullish indication here on the 4-hour. And so let me go ahead and mark this. And so right now we pretty much have a bullish case on the 4-hour off of the overnight low. And on the daily, there's just not enough resolution to really look into the highs and the lows in this area. So let's see if the hourly has any agreement here. And sure enough, the hourly has a really nice bullish divergence as well from that Globex low. Actually, you know something? I take that back. We do not see it there. So from a 1-hour perspective, what I'm noticing is a little bit of exhaustion as we try to push here. So because we did push down in price, but we got a flattening here on RVI, or maybe even a push just a percentage higher here, we do have a little bit of a bearish indication off that high over here. But we have pushed to break that indication, right? So we pushed a little bit higher up here. And now you could kind of make the argument from that high right now. So from this 1-hour perspective, we don't necessarily have a clear bullish divergence off of the Globex low like we saw on the 4-hour. We're starting to get somewhat of a bearish indication off of the current overnight high at 77.25. So what I'm kind of seeing here is we're not getting the stars aligning this morning. If the stars were aligning, we would have a nice clear bull divergence here on the 60-minute. Now, if we see it on the 30 and the 10, we can forget what the 60-minute is saying down here, the fact that we don't see the indication, because that would be fitting our guidelines for my strategy, which is having every time frame except for, say, one in the middle that doesn't agree. We would still get a nice alignment here off the overnight low. So we're going to have to look to our intermediate time frames to see what they're saying. But I will go ahead and just kind of point out that there is somewhat of a bearish case that can be made off of the current overnight high at 77.25. Now, if this does push and break 85, which is going to be an important level this morning, then this whole case will be negated for our 60-minute. And then remember, for our daily. Remember, the daily had that wick at 85, so if we could break that wick, it would give us a bullish case. On our 60-minute, if we break 85, we'll no longer have that bearish indication from an RVI divergence perspective. So let's go to our intermediate time frame, see if we're getting any agreement down here. Give me one moment, and we'll pull it up. Okay, so at least we do have our 30-minute giving us an agreement with our 4-hour. And so we do have a nice bullish divergence off of the Globex low here. So I do like that. I'm glad that we see that. And then currently now you can see from that previous daily high at 85, you get some divergences here off of as we continue to push higher. But I am noticing not only do we have that, but we also have basically a flat RVI here, but a push to a higher low. And then you can even see it, you can basically see it's flat right across, but then we keep pushing to higher lows. So overall, we're getting a lot more bullish indications here on these pullbacks that I'd be more interested in. Compared to those two bearish indications off the highs. Because remember, as we push in a bull type of scenario, although we might get counter indications off of the highs, they're typically only for a little bit of a pullback or a small correction. And from these indications, you can see 66 got a pullback to 57, just about 10 points. And then from this indication here at 73, we pulled back to 66, just under 10 points. And then arguably, you did have 73 down to 68 for 5 points. And now currently, we do have that bearish indication. But as we push, a lot of this stuff is probably going to be negated. And you can see that off of every pullback, we are getting the bullish indication off the lows. So I do like the fact that my 30-minute is agreeing with my 4-hour. And if we can see this on the 10-minute and maybe even the 3-minute, that's going to give us a lot more of a bullish case for the open, especially if we can break 85. So let's take a look and see what the 10-minute is saying here. So 10-minute as well, you can see a really clear bullish divergence off that most recent pullback down to just about 68 quarter. Very clear bullish divergence there. And then as far as bearishness goes, from the previous swing high, there's definitely no indication there. Now, if we go to the low that we made in Globex here, pretty clear bull divergence as well. So pretty much every time frame that has enough resolution to see the Globex low is giving us a bullish indication, except for the 60-minute. So remember, if we see bullish indications from a specific level on every time frame except for one time frame, we can go ahead and ignore that one time frame. And so right now, pretty nice bullish indication off of the Globex low. Of course, the stipulation here for a bullish morning is the break of 85. So if we can't get above 85, that's going to keep that bearish case that we saw all the way back on, I believe, on the 4-hour. And then remember the daily, that really bearish candle from Friday, that could hold if we can't break above that 85. So that's kind of where we are for the morning here. We had a pretty bullish case off of the Globex low. As we push, we definitely get a little bit of exhaustion off of the highs that we saw here on our 30-minute, on our 10-minute, on our 60-minute as we push. However, that is typical because as you push, you're going to have pullbacks. So when you get that bearish indication in somewhat of a bullish push, you're only really expecting some shallow pullbacks, and that's exactly what we got. So we're going to stick with this bullish indication here. Our most recent bullish divergence was off of 68 quarter. So in an ideal world, we'll stay above the 68 quarter. However, we want to keep in mind that 41.66, 50% of the previous day, is right below it. We also have this swing high here, right around 67.50. And so there's some decent stuff in the market right in this general area, including the KP here at 64. So we could see some type of pullback and look for a clear signal to try it long out of this area to see if we can push and break 85. Once 85 is broken, we'll have a very clear bullish, it will confirm our bullish signals for the morning. And remember, the idea is we need to break above 85 and hold above it. We're not talking about a push up to, say, 98 here, and then the market fails and we break down below 85, because in that type of situation, that's going to give us somewhat more of a bearish indication for the morning. So hopefully that helps everybody, and we'll go ahead and dial down to our very short time frames here as we get closer to the open to look for, to see if we have a clear signal for a trade right out of the open. So let's see. Let's look at our 3-minute really quickly here. So we only have about 3 or 4 minutes until the open. And I do want to go back to that overnight low. And again, you can see pretty clearly some really nice bull divergence. So now we have 3-minute, 10-minute, 30-minute, 4-hour bullishness off of that overnight low. And then you can even see on the 4-hour that bullishness off the overnight low. And so things look pretty strong from there. Obviously, if the market sells off and we break below that, that's then going to give us a pretty strong bearish case for the morning. Something else that will give us a bearish case is not being able to break above 85 or a break above and a fail below it. So currently on our 3-minute, definitely had some exhaustion here off the high. We got the pullback, and now we have arguably somewhat of a bullish case at the moment right now off of 74.25. So we'll see if they can hold it here. We can see the same bullish case on the 512 and the 1-minute. So there's the low 74.25, and I'm just pointing out this little divergence right here. It doesn't have to hold, but I am noticing it here on the short time frames. So 3-minute, 1-minute, 512.